So first, let's get into the pros of the film and see what makes this film work and why I think it's worth watching it on the big screen in theaters. First of all, I think the film has authenticity to it. And that makes it really unique, and it totally sets it apart from these other revenge action films that we've been used to seeing, such as John Wick or Equalizer, The Killer, Nobody, etc. Even visually, we see this. I think that there's a lot in the film that reminds me of Italian neorealism. And watching these working class and underclass people of India, what feels very authentic, real, and gritty. And so seeing that visually and having that be a main thematic point of the film, I think this is definitely the one of the most, maybe the only neorealist revenge film that I've seen. And I think that alone makes the movie just unique and refreshing to see. You know what I also really liked, and I thought what really made this stand apart from its contemporaries, is the protagonist, played by Dev Patel also. He fights more clumsy and more desperate. Now, of course, he does eventually end up being a badass ultimate killing machine, but he kind of has to grow into it throughout the narrative, and it feels very earned in the end. To add on top of that, the fighting overall in this film is very, very brutal and animalistic. If I had to give a comparison, it's almost like watching gladiators fight to the death in an arena versus, say, like cool silent ninja assassins that you would see in John Wick. I get to bring that up again. I think it is important to keep bringing up John Wick and these similar other films because I feel like it is such a very saturated genre where you kind of see one, maybe you've seen them all, but I don't think this is the case for Monkey Man. The fighting is way more personable and the plot and world building is way more authentic and culturally aware. I gotta say the cinematography, beautiful. The use of colors is stark and just vibrant and rememberable. It just sticks into your head. I also feel in the film that the cinematography plays a lot with perspectives. Especially during the fight choreography, there's one scene in the film where they're fighting on the staircase, and for every other shot, you kind of go through his point of view, and it's just very shaky, very out of focus, blurry. The way that it comes in and out of his point of view, I thought was very well executed and just visually memorable, and it just made the fighting just way more stark and intense and thrilling. I also gotta say the film was nicely paced. Gosh, actually, how long was the film? Let me look. 2 hours even. Okay. Yeah, it felt like more like maybe like an hour 40 to me. But it feels deserved, It doesn't feel like, oh man, like maybe they needed more of this or they needed to cut down more. I would say more or less this was a nice runtime. Now to go into what I think are the cons. Well, firstly, going back to the this deep, authentic portrayal of India's socio-political landscape. It's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, in the pros, the film feels very authentic, very unique and fresh. On the other hand, if you're not familiar with what's going on in India, the culture, the politics, the film's overall plot and important plot points, it's going to be very fuzzy. There are just certain things in the film, especially the villain's motivations, that the film assumes you know what's going on in India, like what's going on in politics, which party is doing what thing. I watched this film with some other people, and even as someone who was somewhat familiar with what's going on in India, even I was kind of lost. But my friends, as much as they enjoyed the film, were like, well, geez, I don't know what was going on there again. Did that deride my overall enjoyment of the film? Not at all. Is this something that the filmmaker has got to keep in mind when showing this to a Western audience, that this could impact the enjoyment overall? Sure, yeah. That's something to keep in mind too if you're going to watch this film. And lastly, my biggest gripe with the film was the side characters. I know I said that this film was pretty perfect at 2 hours even, but if they had to add like another 5, maybe 10 minutes, I think it has to do with these side characters. A few side characters are introduced and you like them and it seems like they're going to play an important role and then they kind of don't. I think the biggest example of this was the character Alfonso, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. We're introduced to him as like sort of being the right hand of the main villains, He's scummy, but he's very charismatic, likable. You can tell that he doesn't really want to like get involved in the dirtiest, nasty stuff. He just kind of wants to party, and he helps Dev Patel's character get in close with the villains unwittingly. And the film kind of like builds up like this sort of warm relationship between Dev Patel's character and the character of Alfonso, but it never goes anywhere. Alfonso, he helps him escape from the villains and sort of switches sides. But kind of see him at one point later in the film that implies that like you're thinking the next scene is gonna be them two teaming up together to infiltrate the bad guys together. But he's just gone from the film. You don't ever know what happens to him. And that kind of goes for all the side characters. You're introduced to them, they seem cool, the actors give a strong portrayal. There's sprinkles of a story that I was interested in seeing more of, but the film never really falls through that. They kind of just show you the character, they kind of just imply some stuff, and then they're gone. Probably the only like unsatisfying part of the film that I wish they just tweaked and delved into more for sure. Overall, I enjoyed Monkey Man in spite of that. I thought it was a great film, a unique take on the revenge action film genre, especially because of how the film uses the socio-political landscape of India as a driving force rather than just a backdrop. And you know, I would say this film definitely is a must-watch to see in theaters. I would give it 4 out of 5 stars for sure, no questions asked. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you thought of the movie in the comments. Hit the like button, hit subscribe. See you next time.